Coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, South Korea's unification minister leaves for Washington to discuss North Korea policy with US officials as Seoul moves to end tensions with the North. The International Olympic Committee says it could allow the South Korean host city of Pyeongchang to hold some of its 2018 Winter Olympics events outside of Korea. The Games Organizing Committee says it's unlikely to make such a decision. First, racially charged protests against police brutality enter their fourth night in the United States. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
It's new Monday, December 8th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. And our top story this afternoon, South Korea's top North Korea policymaker embarks on a week-long visit to the United States on this Monday.
The trip comes as Seoul is considering a more active strategy to improve inter-Korean ties ahead of next year, which marks the 70th anniversary of the division of the Korean Peninsula. Hwang Sang-hee starts us off.
In Washington, South Korean Unification Minister Eoh Jin-joo will meet with senior officials, including Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Wendy Sherman and lawmakers vocal on North Korea issues such as Ed Royce and Marco Rubio. His trip marks the first visit to the U.S. by a South Korean unification minister since 2011 and comes as Seoul seeks out new momentum in inter-Korean relations. A senior South Korean official told reporters that the government must actively consider incentives for North Korea to resolve the issue of war-separated families who are now in their 80s and 90s. Stressing its utmost importance, the official said it would be an international shame if the government failed to resolve the matter. Although he did not elaborate on what the incentives could be, it's widely speculated South Korea is considering the lifting of economic sanctions imposed on the North in 2010. The sanctions came after North Korea torpedoed a South Korean warship, killing 46 soldiers. The official stressed Pyongyang must apologize for the attack for the sanctions to be lifted, but added all issues will be open for discussion if the two Koreas meet for talk. Pundits say the South Korean government should seek a package deal that includes an apology from the North for the 2010 attack, the lifting of sanctions, and the issue of war-separated families for a much-needed breakthrough in inter-Korean relations. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye says North Korea's nuclear development is not only a grave threat to peace on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia, but also the entire world. Speaking at the annual World Policy Conference in Seoul this morning, President Park also said the lack of trust and cooperation among countries in Northeast Asia was also jeopardizing stability. To turn the tide, the South Korean leader reintroduced her vision for creating a trust politic by which trust and cooperation would be developed through non-political exchanges between the two Koreas and countries in Northeast Asia and Eurasia. President Park also reiterated her belief that a reunification of the two Koreas would be a bonanza, saying a unified Korea would bolster global governance for world peace and offer a new growth engine for the international community. Pyeongchang, the host city for the 2018 Winter Olympics, has been offered the opportunity by the International Olympic Committee to share some of the burden of holding the global sporting event with other cities outside of Korea. The move is part of the IOC reforms aimed at cutting the costs for host cities, but the final decision will rest with Pyeongchang's organizing committee. Song Ji-sun reports.
It took Pyeongchang 3 attempts to win the rights to host the Winter Olympics. But when the flame is lit and the Games get underway in February 2018, some of the events could be taking place elsewhere. The International Olympic Committee has offered a Pyeongchang Organizing Committee the chance to host some of the events in other countries. The decision will be Pyeongchang's to make, though. The IOC's Coordination Commissioner Gunilla Lindberg told AP that Pyeongchang gets the final say on whether the Games stay within the city or whether it takes the opportunity to host some events elsewhere. These proposals are part of the IOC President Thomas Bach's package of reforms dubbed Agenda 2020. The agenda is part of the IOC's bid to change the Olympic Games to better adapt in the changing world for financial and sustainability reasons.
If we do not address these challenges here and now, we will be hit by them very soon. If we do not drive these changes ourselves, others will drive us to them.
According to the IOC, hosting sledding events in pre-existing venues would save Pyeongchang $120 million in construction costs and up to $5 million a year in maintenance. After voting on Agenda 2020 on Monday and Tuesday, the IOC will hand over a list of potential cities to the Pyeongchang Organizing Committee, which has until March to make its decision. The candidates include Nagano in Japan and Salt Lake City in the U.S., as well as 10 other sites in Europe, America, and Asia. Pyeongchang organizers are said to be looking at all available options, but say long-term plans have been drawn up for the venues and construction has already begun. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, from Dokdo Island and Japan's refusal to make amends for its many wartime atrocities to holding North Korea more responsible for its provocations, US Congressman Ed Royce was asked to weigh in on a number of controversial issues central to South Korea in a recent interview. His answers demonstrate quite clearly where his loyalties lie, Eoh Jin-joo reports.
An 11-term U.S. lawmaker is making clear where he stands on a number of issues that have placed South Korea at odds with neighbors. In a wide-ranging interview with Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, Congressman Ed Royce, who is chairman of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, said that understanding the past is key to understanding the present. On the issue of Dokdo Island, Royce openly rejected Japan's claim to the Korean territory and said its proper name is Dokdo, not the Liancourt Rocks as the U.S. officially refers to it, and not Takeshima, which is what Japan calls it. It's a rare assertion since the U.S. government takes no official position on the issue. Royce also slammed Tokyo for repeatedly declining to take responsibility for forcing women into sexual slavery before and during World War II. Calling it as horrifying as denying the Holocaust, Royce said Japan needed to admit history as it occurred to make for a better future. Regarding North Korea, Royce said he has introduced legislation that calls for stronger financial sanctions on the regime. The North Korea Sanctions Enforcement Act passed the House earlier this year and currently awaits approval by the Senate, although passage is unlikely in this current Congress. If the bill doesn't pass, Royce said he would reintroduce it once the new Congress comes in. In the meantime, the veteran lawmaker said Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo needed to work more closely with one another to maintain pressure on North Korea over its human rights violations and repeated provocations. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
North Korea says it was not behind the recent cyber attack on Sony Pictures that many thought was Pyongyang's way of retaliating for an upcoming comedy movie that depicts two Americans planning to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. While denying responsibility, the North's National Defense Commission said the hack might be the, quote, righteous deed of supporters and sympathizers of the North. It also suggested the hack may have been South Korea, who it said linked the attack to North Korea without a shred of any evidence. Last week's cyber attack completely paralyzed Sony Pictures' computer systems and leaked a handful of previously unreleased films onto the internet where they could be illegally downloaded. The film that sparked all the controversy in the first place is called The Interview, and you can see the trailer for it there. It's due to be released in the US later this month.
The year's strongest storm to date has significantly weakened after unleashing torrential rain across the Philippines. For the latest on this and other global headlines, return to our Eunice Kim standing by for us at the News Center.
Now, Eunice, local authorities are beginning to evaluate the damage after this storm devastated parts of the country over the weekend. Not as bad as Haiyan last year, of course, but we're also hearing that it left Scores, hundreds in fact, of Korean travelers stranded in the Philippines as well.
That's right, Mark. Citing sources in the travel industry, local news outlets here in Korea are reporting that some 1,000 travelers are grounded after nearly 200 flights were canceled, including 18 international flights in the face of Typhoon Hagupit. Now, these are people who had arrived in destinations like Boracay and Manila since last Wednesday. The storm is slowly making its way out of the country as we speak, after forcing more than 1 million residents to take cover. The country's interior minister said at least 3 people died, including a toddler and an elderly man of hypothermia. The typhoon made landfall on Saturday, packing winds of up to 175 kilometers per hour, knocking down power and phone lines and flattening homes in an area near the region devastated by last year's Typhoon Haiyan that, of course, had killed thousands of people in its path. An early warning system appears to have helped minimize the loss of life this time around, though concerns of landslides and flash floods still linger. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry issued a travel warning to the Philippines. Korea's government also said it was discussing a humanitarian aid package to send to the country. Protests continue in several U.S. cities for the 4th night running against a recent spate of police confrontations that had ended with the deaths of unarmed black men. Demonstrations, which began peacefully, turned violent in some states, leading to the use of pepper spray and arrests. Son Jung-in has the story.
Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of major U.S. cities over the weekend. The mostly peaceful marches were part of the ongoing protests held since the announcement last Wednesday of a grand jury's decision not to indict a white police officer in the chokehold death of an unarmed black man, Eric Garner. The decision closely followed recent cases of police avoiding prosecution after being implicated in the deaths of African-American men. In New York, protesters chanted slogans like "I can't breathe," the last word spoken by Garner, while others staged a symbolic die-in by lying down on the floor of Grand Central Terminal. While the majority of the gatherings passed by peacefully, some protests, including ones in Berkeley and Seattle, were marred with violence. Some protesters split off from the main crowd to smash windows and pelt police with rocks and bottles, leaving some officers with minor injuries. Demonstrations were also held in Philadelphia, Chicago, Miami, Las Vegas, and a number of other smaller cities. Protesters are demanding a fair execution of the law, regardless of race. Meanwhile, Eric Garner's family, who joined civil rights activist Al Sharpton at the site on Staten Island where Garner died in July, thanked protesters across the country. Sharpton also announced plans to organize more rallies in the near future and to press for change at the federal level. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Protests have erupted in India after a driver of an Uber-registered vehicle was arrested on charges that he had raped a female passenger. Police said they also had custody of the car that had been abandoned Friday night. That's when the 26-year-old woman said she had used the application-based cab service. She said she had fallen asleep before she was sexually assaulted and beaten in a secluded part of Delhi. Fast thinking led her to take down the driver's number and photograph his car after he dropped her off near her home with a warning not to report to authorities. Uber said it suspended the 32-year-old driver's license. Authorities in India, though, say they could take legal action against the U.S. company for failing to check the driver's criminal background.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about...
With household debt piling up to a record high, financial authorities are seeking ways to control the debt, but at the same time promote domestic consumption. Household debt hit a new record high of $950 billion in September. Government policymakers, meanwhile, have also been urging the Bank of Korea to cut interest rates to help bolster domestic demand. Smartphones don't just provide extra convenience in our everyday lives. For businesses and advertisers, they're a direct connection into our eyes and our wallets. And with mobile advertising market enjoying immense growth worldwide, Korea is on the path to lead the way. Kim Hyun-bin has the story.
Before the internet, advertisers spent the bulk of their budgets on television commercials. Now, they have shifted their focus to the mobile phone advertising market. It's a market that has grown significantly here since the advent of the smartphone. And experts believe it's only a matter of time before Korea becomes a world leader. According to a new report by U.S. market research eMarketer, the amount of money spent on mobile advertisements made up more than 38% of all online ads taken out by the Korean businesses this year. That's up 18 percentage points from 2013. And well above the international mean of 26% for this year. But there's plenty of room for growth. The report predicts that mobile advertisements will surpass online advertisements by the end of next year and will make up more than 73% of the total online market by 2018. Expect a similar boom in the mobile payment transaction market. In the first quarter of 2013, the market stood at little over $1 billion. Just months later, by the end of the third quarter, the number has soared more than threefold to roughly $3.5 billion. With smartphones now in the pockets of so many people, expect advertisers and businesses to continue tapping into them with hopes of reaching as many potential customers as possible. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, as Hyun-bin just mentioned there, pretty much everyone in Korea has a smartphone, and it looks like smart wearable devices are finally starting to take off here in Korea as well. According to the nation's biggest telecom providers, the number of subscribers to wearable device rate plans is increasing fast. SK Telecom's T Outdoor service, which is tailored to wearable devices, saw its number of subscribers surpass 25,000 just a little over a month after it was launched. The service, which is tailored for Samsung's Gear S smartwatch, allows the users to make and receive phone calls without their smartphones. Another data plan by KT called Eoh Wearable is also drawing a lot of interest as well. Within a month of going live, the service added more than 10,000 subscribers. LG U Plus says it's also planning to launch its own wearable device plan very soon. As we can see there, technology has changed the way we live by making our lives a lot more convenient. And that's most true for people with disabilities who are able to use advancements in technology to do things they would have never thought possible just a few years ago. Kim Min-ji reports.
Technology continues to find new ways to enrich our lives. This tablet PC can translate sign language. A 3D sensor detects the sign language and interprets it into text or sound.
Hello, my name is Ryan. What's your name?
When words are spoken, they are shown as text on the screen.
My name is Jordan.
The tablet, created by technicians with hearing impairments, expands the scope of communication between the disabled and non-disabled. This device aids people with visual impairments. A camera on the side of the glass reads text on the products. When you place your finger on the text, the speaker plays it out loud. It can also inform the wearer of the color of traffic lights and the value of cash they are holding.
$50.
Thank you very much.
The technology enables users to ride the bus alone and read menus, making their lives more convenient than ever. Devices that help patients who are paralyzed from the waist down walk have also become more sophisticated. Made using fiber, this robot outfit allows the walking to look more natural. It can also detect obstacles that may be in the way.
Wearable robot to really help with walking. It's really critical for it to provide the right level of assistance at the right time for the wearer.
These are technological developments that no doubt inspire hope in millions of disabled people worldwide. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, the K-pop craze is powered by a steady stream of Korean music. Every week, tens of songs come out, but the entertainment agencies responsible for creating some of the biggest names in the industry are now looking to emulate that success in the music field in other areas as well.
Right, from fashion and cosmetics to a travel agency, our Connie Kim takes a look at their most recent pursuits in this week's Industry Insight.
Big Bang, Girls' Generation, Super Junior. There are few K-pop stars who have taken the world by storm, capped off, of course, by Psy and his YouTube hit Gangnam Style. Behind every great act in Korea is an entertainment agency that cultivates and promotes them. And leading the pack is YG Entertainment, one of the powerhouses driving the so-called Hallyu or Korean wave. Founded in 1996, it created a success formula with idol groups like Big Bang and 21 and went public on Korea's tech-heavy Kosdaq stock market 3 years ago. YG now boasts annual revenue of some $104 million, more than 250 employees, and more than 20 artists under its belt. On the back of their success, entertainment giants are now branching out to other businesses. In September, YG launched apparel brand Nonigan, using its fashionable artists who influence fans all over the world to market it. Through pop-up stores in Italy, Hong Kong, and China, it aims to rake in $90 million by 2017.
I've always thought that fashion and music go in line together. When we think of Big Bang and 21, we think of their songs, but behind their performances, it's their styling and fashion that makes them a whole.
It even jumped on the popularity of Korean cosmetics with its own line, Moonshot, targeting K-pop fans with Asian facial features. Recognizing YG's growth potential, French luxury goods giant LVMH has announced it'll invest up to $80 million in the company. While YG may be at the top right now when it comes to branching out, it's not the first. SM Entertainment, a Hallyu pioneer, started diversifying its business 2 years ago. It acquired travel agency BTNI, offering music fans special concert tours in Korea. And last year, SM collaborated with publisher Design House to release the lifestyle magazine The Celebrity, printing an average of 80,000 copies a month.
As these SM and YG are entering these businesses, they could probably see some synergy when they utilize their artists in those areas. And as from customer standpoint, if they get more touch points.
Market watchers say it's important for them to keep their capital flowing, as it's too early to call these ventures a success. To promote their new businesses, it's also vital to keep the K-pop boom going.
In addition to reaching out to other industries, it's important that they stick to their original source of profit, producing good music to expand their fan base worldwide.
If YG and SM's new business ventures enjoy the same success that K-pop has, it'll not only provide a new source for profits, it'll also give a boost to a new kind of Korean wave. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The early morning snow has moved out from the peninsula, and the whole nation can expect to bask under clear blue skies throughout the day, pushing temperatures to relatively mild levels. And I'm sure as many of you have noticed, it's turned much milder. Afternoon temperatures will finally rise above the freezing mark here in the capital, topping out at 3 this afternoon, and other parts will also be warmer, like Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 7 and 8 this afternoon, while Busan top out at 9 under lots of sunshine. And as for the other regions, Jeju will be getting a up to 10, while Daejeon and Dokdo-si highs of 4 and 5. Now, we'll continue to get a break from the severe cold snap for the next couple of days, but as we head into the end of the week, things will get icy cold again. And before I go, sidewalks are still covered in snow and the roads are wet with some possible slick spots, so be extra careful outside today. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Newsline at Noon.
Yes, and please join Jin-joo and I again at the same time on Tuesday. Until then, goodbye.